Good evening, everybody. You know, Nancy and I were both offered jobs at our local Chamber of Commerce in 1987. And little did we know then that that job would turn into a career. And 30 years later, each of us would have worked at 4 different chambers in 3 different states. The one common thread that Nancy and I have shared throughout our personal and our professional career has been none other than Larry Bowman. For Nancy, it was Larry who gave her that first chamber job. And for me, my path with Larry began at Institute at the University of Delaware. Larry was my class advisor the first year, and because our class was so difficult the second year, he actually came back for the third year. So believe me, I could tell lots of funny and yes, embarrassing stories about Larry. But he is very fortunate. They gave me very little time. So I'm going to limit it to sort of one flashback memory from way back when, because I think it really symbolizes the essence of why Larry's career has been so impactful. Now you have to remember, back in those days, there was very little communication between your institute class during the year. That's when long-distance phone calls were very expensive, and it was before that a vice president had invented the internet and email, so there was very little communication. So when you were anxious when you got back to Institute to share all the ideas that you had implemented during the year. And while I've had many late-night conversations with Larry over all these years, including last night, there's one particular dorm room conversation in Delaware that stands out. Maybe we were sober at the time. Maybe. I recall telling Larry about all the things that I implemented during the course of the year. Now, Larry made me feel good about what I did, but at the same time, he challenged me. He challenged me to do more. He moved the conversation away from talking about all the operational details of running a chamber to the big picture of why chambers really exist. Basically, he was asking me, as then a 24-year-old, how I was going to use the capacity of this chamber to build a better community. He made me think. He inspired me. Throughout his career at a number of chambers in several states, Larry has consistently built stronger chambers to build stronger communities, and he has done it exceptionally well. And at the same time, he has built up his colleagues. I gave the little example of me. I know there's a number in this room, whether formally or informally, how Larry served as a mentor. He also was the president of a couple of different state chamber execs association. He served on the board at Institute. He served on ACCE's board on a couple of different occasions throughout his chamber career, and the list goes on and on. To say that Larry's work has had an impact is a huge understatement. Communities, chambers, people, our profession are stronger because of him. Please join Nancy and I in welcoming ACCE's newest life member, Larry A. Bowman, CCE.
You make me feel so young. You make me feel so spring has sprung. And every time I see you grin, I'm such a happy individual. The moment that you speak, I want to go play hide.
Folks, good evening. This is quite an honor. I have to tell you, I'm presenting an alternative set of remarks tonight. My friend and presenter Nancy Kiefer had offered to write my acceptance remarks a few days ago, and I figured why not? Only when I received her version, it was all about her and about the positive impact she had on my career. So I figured I'd better go back to the drawing board and do my own. And then I had some input from my friend Mark Egan. I had input from my friend John Gregory today. John reminded me that our mutual friend Chip Halleck has an early flight tomorrow morning. Keep the remarks moving, don't make them too long. Mick Fleming mentioned in passing this morning about how all of us have followed different paths entering this profession. Mine started in the late 1970s, a month after I graduated and finished graduate school. I had a call from the career placement office telling me there was a job available with the nearby Schenectady, New York Chamber. It was in the area of government affairs, which is my area of interest. That sounded good. The only problem was I didn't know anything about chambers of commerce. Fortunately, the CEO of that chamber, a good friend, George Mirabal, saw enough potential in me that he hired me. I know that each of you have your own story, your own path that got you here tonight and into this profession. You know, what we all have in common is that we're working in a very special and a very unique job and career. And I hope that each of you views it that way. We impact every day, we have had the opportunity to impact every day, people, businesses, communities. Please don't take that lightly. You're serving a very important function. We beneficially impact businesses, people, residents of our areas, and entire communities. I think, unfortunately, sometimes we get lost in the long hours, the many meetings that we're in, the pressures of the job, and sometimes we lose sight of the forest for the trees. And my hope for each of you is that you have the opportunity on occasion to just step back and really look at what you're doing and the impact that you're having. It's important. There are a lot of people I'd like to thank tonight, and time won't allow it individually. But I've had the opportunity to serve with probably hundreds of members of boards, 30 to 35 different board chairs, and some excellent staff. I've also had the chance to serve with colleagues in Pennsylvania, Delaware, and New York, and I value those friendships and relationships. I've learned a lot from those folks. There are several people I need to mention specifically tonight who have had a huge impact on my career. These people are not only colleagues, but they become lifelong friends. George Mirabal, the gentleman I mentioned who hired me at the Schenectady Chamber in 1977. George was the CEO then. He had a 40-year career in this business and retired a few years ago from the Daytona Beach Chamber. Nancy Kiefer, whose speech writing I rejected for tonight. Nancy was probably among all the good staff hires I made, Nancy was probably the finest. And I had the good sense in the 1980s to bring her on board to our chamber. She's remained a very close, a very special friend. I have other folks like Mark Egan, my other presenter tonight, Chip Halleck, John Gregory, and many others that I met through Institute. Those folks together, not only chamber colleagues, they become some of my best friends in life, and I value those friendships. I also want to recognize Mick Fleming. I had the good fortune to cross paths with Mick when we were working together in New York State in the 1980s and 1990s. We both went different directions and then met up again in central New York in the early 2000s, late 1990s and early 2000s. And then I've had the chance to follow Mick again with his excellent career here at ACCE. Now, Mick is getting ready to retire, as we all know, and Mick, I'm hoping this will finally be the chance for you to stop following me around. But it's been a pleasure, Mick. It really has been. There's one other person I want to thank tonight, really my greatest asset in my career. She's not here tonight. She served as my sounding board, my confidant, my advisor, every day of my career. This is my wife, Kathy, who I lost 2 years ago to cancer. And I want to dedicate the award I'm receiving tonight to her. Thank you.